Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. I am here with Brenda Williams, who is going to be discussing conversations of a different kind. What does it mean to have a conversation in which both parties can disagree and yet come to their own truth in a resonant field and find that the only thing that was really separating them was language, the words, the way we express ourselves? That's the basis of conversations of a different kind. Join me now for the conversations of a different kind with my friend Brenda Williams.
I could feel the light bulbs go on for him, and it was like, I hadn't thought about that. And I said, well, part of that is that there's not been an easy way to explain that, to say that, because if you're used to filling in the gaps between what you say and someone else, you don't think there's a problem. But there is. None of us have those experiential vocabularies in place, even when we are in people with like mind. So if we can't do it there, then we certainly, it's certainly difficult to do it when we get into the diversity, which is where we are and what's important right now. So I thought it was just an interesting addendum to say what we're doing right now is really important. Just having those conversations.
Absolutely.
It's the unlimited potential of true north, our connection above and below with the planet and with us. But taking it to the step that we took it to in our conversation, it's like our fingerprints. So within that space, when we are communicating or when we are having our experiences, are we still hitting blockages, walls, confusion, doubt, all of those things? Those are still gaps. So bringing us back into that space is the reason it is a critical piece of RBQT, is that it's the second step. Reset, self-adjust. We do all we can do consciously. Now we get to the work. The work is contained in the 18 inches. It's how we learn about the push out or the push in. And then I think one of the next steps is also understanding how truthful are we with ourselves? Because we can skirt around the gaps. We're good at navigating around things that are just a tad out of resonance. So I think the trivector system is to, first of all, to bring all of those pieces into being and to give steps on how to watch how our behavior changes, what are our triggers, but more importantly than that, what are our own gaps? Because now we have the potential for our inward system to be working with ancient wisdom and with the new routing system. Perpetual motion, it never stops, just like our brain. Our brain never goes to sleep. But that doesn't mean it doesn't communicate at our highest level all the time.
Right.
In fact, most of the time it's distracted. So I think that what we're doing is kind of building the next platform for the trivector system to land. I think it's very close to ready. I do know that it's not to come on until after the equinox, which is tomorrow. But I think what this piece was to open the door for is to have a little bit of dialogue about the gaps, to understand more specifically the gaps that we have in each of these areas, like our spiritual understanding, our physical understanding, with what are the triggers within our body, what are the stories that we've been told that we still believe as absolute truth without even questioning whether there might be a bigger version or a more current version and more inclusive version of it, and then going to the science behind it. When we reach a point that we don't have to constantly prove by someone else's version what is our truth, have we gotten to those places yet? A lot of things that I would go back and look at in journals back in the 90s, I would have staked my life on them being the absolute truth.
Right. Yeah.
Then we get into the physical stuff, and boy, I tell you what, my body's much smarter than I thought it was back in the 90s. I've had experience now. I've seen what it's able to do when it shrunk that thing in my lung. And then, do I really need to have proof again? Is validation better than proof?
Validation comes from what? Outside influences?
Validation comes from experiential conversations. In our conversation, or in our, you mentioned earlier, sometimes when you would write the book, and very shortly after that, you would see the same language and a building on that. To me is validation. That's what I always look for in things. And the minute I see that, I know, okay, I'm done with that piece. I can move on. That piece now has been assimilated, not just in me, but exponentially out into the world. But yet, if science hasn't proven it, and how far behind are they? You know, in my own experience, they've been about 20 years behind. But yet we consider, if it can't be proved scientifically, it is not valid. Can we not listen to and see the behavior of people, to see what's been integrated and assimilated, the language of people? And I'm not talking about what's being shown on the 6 o'clock news. What is our personal experience, and how is that being validated? And you and I talk about that a lot. I was at the grocery store and this happened, and oh my goodness, I saw that my work, you know, what I've been doing all these years hasn't just been wasted. So that, I think, is what the next step that we can provide, is that platform for the Trivector system and others that will be coming to actually stand comfortably on, because they won't constantly be distracted looking for validation or an explanation or something in the scientific world or something on the 6 o'clock news that shows that it's actually happening. Does that?
Yeah, and it brings up the question, how can we internally know our truth if we're not looking out there or for somebody else to give us permission to follow our mission, or looking for validation from science or proof from science? How do we know when we have these conflicting voices within our own communication internally, which is the truth? Is there a way to discern that?
I think there is. I think there are two ways, possibly. Because you know me well enough to know how confused I get and how split my choices are sometimes. But what do? We talk about it. We have a conversation. We will say, oh my goodness, today I have just been upside down and round and blah, blah, blah. And what happens when that conversation is over with? I always come away with clarity.
Yeah.
Not a change, not someone telling me, oh, well, that's just stupid, just let it go. No, we actually dig in and begin to be real about what is it you're really bothered about. What's the real issue? So once again, I think it's back to that tagline that they gave me back in the 90s, conversations of a different kind. What does of a different kind mean? We're not just talking to hear how smart I am or how smart you are or how much I know or how much you know, or here's what happened to me yesterday and it was all good or it was all bad or whatever. We're doing things in a different way. And I believe that that's what we're looking at to build on. How do we encourage and inspire people to have different conversations? Because I don't know about you, but I know enough about you to know that when you feel resonance, you know you're on the right track. When there's not a question mark, You know you're on the right track.
Okay.
You know that it is truth for you in that moment.
Right. In that moment. That's key.
In that moment, not
Because it may change.
not 3 moments down the road. In the early days, that I think was one of the real impediments, because for some reason people would think I knew things they didn't know. So if I would say something, it would be etched in stone and generally, made big. But 2 days later, 2 months later, 2 years later, I'd be way past that. Well, but this is what you said. That was then.
Yeah, yeah.
If I go back to look at the conversations that you and I have had over the time we've known, especially the recent ones, I would walk in and we'd start at one place and be way beyond that, so that just looked like kindergarten. So we are working with that triangle, that third point of synthesis. We can do the first one, we can do the second one. How do we get to the third one? And that's the knowing place. How do I know that I know that I know in this moment without expectation about how long it's going to last? Because I don't know about you, but recently things have not been lasting very long.
Shifting. It's hard to make plans. Clients are telling me it seemed like I was going to do this, and then this changed and that changed, and now I don't feel resonant with that. And even when we started this conversation today, I don't know if I had hit the record button yet, but you were saying, well, I thought I had this plan, but now it looks like that has changed. So I think flow and flexibility is very important while we're in this paradigm that is so in flux and shifting. We're just riding the waves up and down, and sometimes rolled over in them. And sometimes we stand up and go, this is only ankle deep. I thought I was drowning.
I went back in the trivector system outline that and languaging that I had been put in, and added, a little part about that. Because, we know Kalaman's work, and we've got 9 waves going at the same time. And boy, are they ever different. Because they are inclusive of here's our perfection. We were here, but we were at a primitive level and did not have the distractions nor the ability to reconcile some of what was happening. And then we hit that 6th wave where the, masculine component became dominant. And then we hit that 7th wave when we said, never mind. And then we hit that 8th wave, which said, well, we girls are going to take over now. And now we've hit the 9th wave, all 9 of them running at the same time. And we're going, no wonder we're confused.
Right.
Is this my masculine self? I saw a post also from one of the astrologers that said, we are in this very masculine component right now. Well, I don't know about you, but all of a sudden I've been in a doing mode. But not in a doing mode void of the compassion or the feminine. Let's just go slow with this and be sure it's resonant before I throw it out there. So I think that what all of this is allowing us this brief moment to begin to look at what it is that's resonant with us individually for this moment. Who do I come together with that we are also working with that same concept, which is how the brain works anyway, concepts. And how can I expand those conversations for me to have more clarity personally, and for me to contribute my experiential vocabulary so that you will have an expanded experiential vocabulary to use as you move about into your world. And I think that's what I didn't expect. That was what we were coming in, but I know a lot of my gaps are suddenly getting closed. The individual personal stuff is all of a sudden closing and going, yes, now when I step away from this conversation, I am more resonant and clearer about the potential of putting together extra pieces of this trivector that I hadn't considered were necessary. I didn't know how to explain gaps.
So, Brenda, this is not about compromise where your truth comes in and my truth comes in, and okay, we got to find a way for this to for both of our truths to walk together. Is it? What's the difference in that and compromise?
Brilliant question. Brilliant question. Because, yeah, precisely. Because compromise, in its current definition, means you think one way and I think another way. And if we want to be friendly to one another and not have inner conflict, then we're going to have to find a way that I can accept and you can accept. And that, to me, puts a masculine edge on it. Instead, I don't do what you do. You don't do what I do. And yet what we do together builds a concept that expands out beyond both of us, because we open a door not for compromise, but for allowing, but while standing in the resonant field of my 18 inches that says my connection through the top and to the bottom is solid. I don't have conflict. No matter what you say, if I have a push out, then what I know is, we need to explore that because our vocabulary is not matching.
Okay.
But yet our experiences will. It's the conflict with vocabulary. We did not come here with language. That was an afterthought. We did not come here with emotion. That was an afterthought. Well, how are we doing in that? We're building a new experiential vocabulary. So that's in the field now for people to be able to look at, how do our words match? And the second one is, how do our emotions allow everyone to have their experience without me judging it as being right or wrong? Because hello, I'm not in their 18 inches and I don't know what their soul needs for them to have the experience they need. I just know sometimes it doesn't look very nice. Well, guess what? It's not my experience. I get to step back and allow and stand in that resonant field of love and allowance. That's the piece that we're all being asked to do now. Fill in your gaps so that you're not pointing fingers and you're not compromising just so you'll fit in. I don't have to be politically correct. I do not have to look like everybody else. So your question is brilliant, because those are the two conflicting words.
We don't want to compromise, but we are setting a field where we can allow the resonance that is there, that's maybe the vocabulary is distorting. I mean, if you get to the basis of all religion and what everybody wants, we want to be loved and accepted. Well, God is already, God, goddess, whatever you call that, again, vocabulary, is already loving and accepting of us. All we have to do is love and accept ourselves, and that makes it much easier for us to flow that love and acceptance to others, even if we disagree with them.
Absolutely. And well said. Thank you. You see, if anyone's listening, this is how we do conversations. We continue to build until we have a definition, I'll use that word loosely, that both of us feel resonant with.
Neither one is sacrificing.
You don't sacrifice anything. That's martyrdom went out a long time ago. Just say, it's not a requirement. The one thing that I know for myself that's still true from the beginning for me is what I call the absolutes. And part of that is I was given the opportunity to live my life in joy and peace. True. Opportunity. Catch that word. Not a guarantee. Opportunity. All of my needs will be met. No matter where I am on the financial system, no matter where I am on the emotional system, if I am truthful and honest with myself, I'm okay. I am well cared for. Now, my needs and my wants might be a little different, but my needs are cared for, always have been. And there's an absolute guarantee that all things will evolve and change. And we are up
We're witnessing that.
We are up to hearing that right now. all that is required is that I trust the beginning.
Trust.
And for me, the beginning is what some people call God, or pick a word like you said that you
Yeah.
want them to use. But the reality is, it's that space that is beyond me and beyond anyone that I know on this planet, or any other planet for that matter. It is that space that is so resonant and so loving and so kind and so benevolent, that it's okay if I stump my toe or make a mess down here sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I have the opportunity now with these tools that are contained in my physicality
Mm-hmm.
to make those adjustments and to feel resonant with myself. And I think that's what, I laugh a lot when I think about what we're going to talk about, because I didn't know coming in. But what I know is that there's a way that we can each have conversations that bring out the best in us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's about self-discovery, I think. A lot of times we come in and we've got this opinion, and this is it, and there's no other truth. And that's what causes the division and the conflict and the wars and things like that. If we can come in with more of a flexibility, saying, well, this seems to be my truth. This is how I feel today. Let's hear what you have to say. What do you have to say? And instead of fighting about it, let's just get all the pieces on the table and see what's the actual puzzle. What is the picture we're creating together? Because it's more than likely each of us holds the truth. Each of us holds some form or color or shade of that whole picture. And when we put it together, we find we're not that far apart on our understanding to begin with.
Absolutely. And not only do we each hold a piece, and every human on this planet holds a piece, mm-hmm. including other things that are inanimate objects, holds a piece of this puzzle. And while we may have a pretty good idea of what ours looks like, no one has the whole picture. Mm-hmm. No one has it. And every time I put my piece together with someone else's, like when we put ours together, and it's like, wow, this is a lot different than I thought it was going to be, because it's inclusive.
Right.
The whole picture is inclusive.
You don't have to take your puzzle pieces and put them back in the box and go home.
No,
you can just leave them on the table and let's see where they fit later.
That's right, because I guarantee you they will. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've learned, particularly with you. It's like, okay, well, I don't understand what that is. But as we begin to talk, what I find out is that I understand one side of it. You understand another side of it. We put it together and it's like, oh, that's what that means. Wow. Filled in a gap, a personal gap and a collective gap.
And that's what the Conversations of a Different Kind is all about.
What a way to put that one together.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brenda. I love it.
Thank you. People are going to have to do the same thing we did. I don't know about you, but I had to dig through a whole bunch of stuff, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
Try out a whole bunch. So
yeah, I was raised in the church. Remember, I had a whole lot of stuff to dig out.
Well, I did Presbyterian and Lutheran catechisms because I had
Mm-hmm.
I had Lutheran on one side and Presbyterian on the other, and it was like I had to learn catechisms in both of them, and I hated it, but I hated all of it.
Yeah. Well, I was raised in it, so I really didn't know any different. And I found that even as I've gone through this, it's like I opened the closet and I just started pulling pieces out and looking at it and going, do I believe that? Do I not? And I would put some of it in a discard, like, no, that is totally rubbish. Then I would put some more of it in a, let's consider that more. Don't throw it away yet. And then others of it's going, that is my truth. That has always been my truth. And I still feel resonant with it. We're keeping that. And that's what I feel like I've been doing for the last 20 years. Yeah. Since I've been unchurched, it's like, how do I incorporate my experience, my raising, my terminology with my metaphysical background? Because I've got this blending of both, and I'm finding validity in both of those concepts. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all these things will be added unto you. Well, what you were talking about just prior to this, about your wants and your needs being supplied as we trust, well, where is that kingdom? Where is that? Seek ye first the kingdom within your own self, your own truth, your own relationship with source or whatever it is. And then all these external things, they'll just take care of themselves. And I know that sounds Pollyanna, but
I don't think it does. No, I don't think it does, because I think that we have a tendency to throw the baby out with the bathwater and the soap and the wash bag all at one time, out the back door. No, I am finding so much that is still as relevant to me today. And that's why, you know, I use the word God. I grew up with that. I still, that to me doesn't have a bad word. It's not a bad word. It doesn't carry negative connotations. I don't like the organization of the church in some, but there's a little community church that my aunt, my daddy's sister, you know, it's still there. They were all part of it back in the day. It's a small, tiny little church, little Lutheran church, more old people than young, but a few young coming in now. Very small congregation. But I tell you what, they represent exactly what my knowing of that community should be. They help one another. They support one another. They pitch in and make sure they have, you know, it's clean and it's all. You look at how they perform there.
Yes.
How they show up there. They don't come, you know, it's not about, I've got a new shirt or I've got a new dress or I got a new pair of shoes, nanny boo boo. It's not about that. It's like, we don't care how you come, just come.
And it's not about coming to decide whose doctrine is the greatest or whose belief system we should all follow. It is about service to others, service to God, service to the light, whatever you want to call it. It is about this community of finding one another's needs and helping to meet those so that everybody has an opportunity to flourish.
Absolutely, I agree. And my cousin, we're the two old ones left in both my dad's family and his sister's family, and we're, you know, very opposite in our upbringing and in our, you know, how we behave now, because she's, you know, it's passed down through our whole family, and now the young ones are the ones taking over. But what's interesting is that we can have conversations that are absolutely polarized, and yet we find the common thread and we have respect for one another, because we know that no matter what words we put around things, where we are inside with our 18-inch association, I know where she comes from and she knows where I come from. We just don't talk about it in the same way.
Right, exactly. I found myself having a most unusual conversation with my mom about ETs, and I never saw that day coming. Because, you know, I don't really know where my mom's at as far as her beliefs. We've always gone to church, but she's been in church for nearly as long as I have now. And religion and politics are two things that just never came up at our dinner table, because, you know,
we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that. So having that conversation with her was surprising. But then I realized, well, she already believes in angels. They're otherworldly. They're not of the earth. So how, you know, it was that vernacular. It was that, what do you call it? What do I call it? Same thing. And just from that perspective, it didn't seem that weird.
Guides and angels.
Guides and angels. You don't believe in spirit guides? What is the Holy Spirit to you? Yeah. I say that to my Christian brothers. What is Jesus to you? If not a spirit guide? You know, so we put it all out on the table and we realized, wait a minute, you got the same piece of puzzles I do. Yours is just a different color.
I love it. Wow. See what fun. This is just so much fun. This is showing how simple this would be for people, for anybody to do it. And hopefully others will begin to start doing this and understanding the significance.
Enjoy your day, Brenda. Thank you so much for sharing today. It's been fun.
You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.